I think it's finally that time in the year where I am getting ready and getting willing to sell my Fidelity Bitcoin ETF. Now, this might come as a surprise to a lot of you. When you're watching this video, you might think, man, doesn't Bitcoin have a lot more room to go? Like, don't we have all 2025 for Bitcoin to go up? And I think the answer is yes. Like, I think Bitcoin goes much higher than it is today continuously, probably around, I think 140,000, 150,000, maybe 180,000, something crazy like that. But a lot of reasons are stacking up for me to be ready to sell my Fidelity Bitcoin position. And I want to share this with you because I've been sharing my whole Fidelity journey with you, showing how I bought a bunch later, how I initially started buying. Like, we have a couple of videos on the Fidelity Bitcoin ETF, kind of experiment in this channel. And so I'm getting ready to sell my Fidelity Bitcoin position. I'm going to sell it at $103, which is about a 15% gain from here, from when I did the numbers a couple days ago. And I want to share why. Also, if you're new to my channel, real quick, everything I've done to build this Fidelity Bitcoin position, including knowing kind of when I wanted to buy, is in the description. It's called the Crypto 100x Blueprint, and it's how I invest in and kind of invest and grow my net worth in the crypto industry. Now, it's called Crypto 100x because I use it to find and build 100x positions in small Cardano native tokens, but I've applied this whole theory to that Fidelity Bitcoin ETF, and I've used it to simply 2x my position. So if that kind of interests you, how I look at crypto, how I think about investing in crypto, that's in the description, free to download just for you. The first big reason is that I got into this Bitcoin position not to get rich, right? It was not my goal to get super wealthy off of Bitcoin because I know the limited upside that Bitcoin has, right? We all know that even in the best case scenario, if Bitcoin were going to go to $200,000 or $250,000 this cycle, that's still really only like a double from here, right? At $100,000 Bitcoin, getting to $200,000 is just a double. Now, my whole goal with this Bitcoin experiment was to turn $8,000 into $16,000 so that I could use that money and either buy a car, add the money to my savings, kind of get myself some money back after this holiday season, right? Take myself on a trip, like a vacation, or I could take that extra money I made and rotate it into some small Cardano native tokens. Also, this Fidelity Bitcoin position has been very similar to my Ethereum position. If you're not familiar, I currently hold 2 Ethereum, and the reason that I hold Ethereum and the reason that I hold this Bitcoin position is they are hedges against my Cardano native portfolio. So I have Cardano native tokens, like very, very small tokens on Cardano that I am trying to 100x my portfolio with. And so in order to kind of balance that risk out, I have added and built an Ethereum position and a Bitcoin ETF position so that I can de-risk my Cardano native token position. Now, in my regular life, I also have a ton of S&P 500 and large cap ETF funds that are the majority of my net worth. So crypto is like 20% of my net worth, but then inside of that 20%, about 10% is Bitcoin and Ethereum and these safer assets. And then the other 10% of my crypto portfolio is more riskier tokens like Cardano and Cardano native tokens. So this Bitcoin ETF position has done a very good thing for me. Currently, I'm up 85% on the position, and I've turned around $8,000 into over $14,000. The ultimate target for this was to turn $8,000 into $16,000, and I'm only about 15% away from that. I think, based on my calculations, that if Bitcoin were to get to $120,000, that would equal around $103 F Bitcoin price, and that would be the perfect time for me to sell my position. Now, a couple of reasons we've already talked about is that this Bitcoin ETF position has done what it was meant to do. It was meant to de-risk my native token positions, get me a little bit of money, and kind of give me some money to pad some of these positions, or in case they go south, or pad this Christmas, or kind of just give me a little bit of extra savings money, right? A little bit of extra S&P 500 money or car down payment money. And this position has done that. I've turned $8,000 into currently over $14,000, and ideally it will get to over $16,000 at the time that I sell. That's a really good return for only holding this since, March of 2024, right? The second thing that this position has done is I know it's not going to make me rich. And so I think if I push the position past $120,000, in just a second, we're going to get to all the reasons why I think $120,000 is a good time for me to sell. But if I push the position past 120K Bitcoin or around $103 F Bitcoin, I can be running into some risk reward scenarios where the risk of holding Bitcoin and weathering a massive drawdown is not worth the small rewards that it's going to give me compared to my Cardano native tokens or compared to other positions that I hold. The more that Bitcoin goes past $120,000, the more likely it is to top, in my opinion, right? And so throughout the cycle, I want to show you in just a few seconds, I want to show you how $120,000 Bitcoin is a good first target for me. But then after that, we could have significant drawdowns or we could have a consolidation phase before the next big run up to maybe like 150,000 or 160,000 or something like that. And so that kind of risk is not worth it for me when I want to lock in the gains for what I want to use them for today. To piggyback off all of that, all those couple reasons why I think now is a good time for me to sell my Bitcoin, on the charts, I have even more reasons why $120,000 Bitcoin could be my best time to sell and my best time to lock in some of those profits, okay? The first big one I want to show with you is that this trend-based Fibonacci extension, the first 1.618 lines up directly with the $120,000 Bitcoin level. Now, if you're not familiar with this tool, it helps you understand where the next levels of extension in price could possibly hit all-time highs or new all-time highs. And let me show you this thing from last cycle, actually. Bitcoin has a lot of good data, and you can kind of come in here and test it cycle over cycle. Let me show you here. So we take this tool right here, trend-based Fibonacci extension. We take the low from 2015, the high from 2017, and bring it down to the low of, what is this, 2018. You can see how it took Bitcoin last cycle in 2021, got all the way up to the 2.618, around $55,000 here, and then came back and bounced at the 1.618. Now, I'm not sure if we can expect a 2.618 extension again this cycle here in 2024, but I think a great first target for me, given the other reasons I've listed for selling Bitcoin, a good first target is right here, around $120,000 at the 1.618 level. Now, do I think this is the ultimate top for Bitcoin? No, I do not. I think that this is a great spot for me to start to take all of my Bitcoin profit, lock in the profit without having to worry about what kind of ups and downs goes on in this section. I think probably a great target that could possibly happen is around 185,000 given what happened last cycle, but I would not bet my whole stack on it. Maybe we get to 170, maybe we get to 150, maybe we get to 140, right? I don't want to bear that kind of burden. I want to take my profit at 120 and run with it. After this, after the trend-based Fibonacci extension, the next thing that I was also looking at is Bitcoin monthly returns. This kind of shows you what kind of returns we've had over Bitcoin's lifetime, and you can see average return is pretty good in January, February, November, and December. Now, there's always good and bad months here in the Bitcoin world, but I think we've had a pretty great November and December in Bitcoin. I think we could have a potential very good January and February, getting us to that 120,000 level of that 15% return. And if it happens in January, well, I mean, it could happen in December. If it happened in December, I might pause and see what happens in January. But if it happens in January or February, I think that's a perfect time for me to pull the trigger, because as we move into these spring months and summer months, you see there's a lot more potential for red. And I don't really just want to deal with a drawdown. Because I don't want to deal with the drawdown, I want to lock in my profit. I don't think it's worth kind of waiting it out and seeing what happens in the middle here in order to get to the ultimate pump at the end of the year. I just want to take my profit in January or February, whenever it happens. We can look here in 2021. You can see a 14% January. That would get me to $120,000. 36% February. But here in April, May, June, kind of just wishing around all late spring, early summer, midsummer. It's just kind of ups and downs before we hit the end of the year with that big massive run up. And so I don't know. I think January and February could be a good time to hit 120,000, and it could be a good time for me to sell my Bitcoin. After all of that, there's another analysis that Benjamin Cowan has been doing, and he's been looking actually at the QQQ ETF, the inception of the QQQ. And I think that this is very applicable to people and what they're looking at today in Bitcoin. If we come over here, this right here is the start of the QQQ ETF, and it is eerily similar to what's going on with the Bitcoin ETF. Now, right here, The QQQ started at $50. You can see right over here, it's $50. The QQQ started at $50. Ironically, what Benjamin Cowan has been saying is that the Bitcoin ETF started when Bitcoin was around $50,000. It's very interesting. Then we've kind of had this 1 year run up from $50 or Bitcoin at $50,000. And then this was in March of 1999. The top was a year later in March of 2000. And so we're getting close to, the Bitcoin ETF was released in 2024 in February or January or February. Based on all the other analysis I've given, January 2025 or February 2025 could be our year from now and could top out here around $120,000. You can see that the QQQ tops here around 120 1 year after starting at 50,000. And so the Bitcoin ETF is very, very similar, starting at 50,000 and ending at 120,000, whereas the QQQ started at 50 and ended at 120 1 year later. This is just another piece of evidence I'm adding to my position. I'm adding to my idea of why $120,000 Bitcoin is my ultimate sell target. Now I want to wrap this video up with you just looking at the FBitcoin chart. I think that when you're going to watch this video, you're going to question, like, I mean, does that mean Bitcoin's totally over? Does that mean 120,000 is the top? And the thing I want you to know is no. I don't think that 120,000 is the top for Bitcoin. And because it just doesn't really line up with the Bitcoin cycle. So we can actually, let's just go back to the Bitcoin cycle here real quick. And we can see that Bitcoin, let's see where all the tops are. It topped March and November of 2021. In 2017, it topped in December. In 2013, it topped in November, right? In April of 2013, I mean, this wasn't really a top, it was like a mid-cycle top, but you can see how at the end of the year is when it's topping. So realistically, we can expect Bitcoin to top again at the end of the year. So if you're trying to get the ultimate price extraction out of your Bitcoin, out of your ETF, you shouldn't sell when I'm selling. I'm selling because I have a goal of 100% return. But if you're trying to get the ultimate sell, you could probably look to later in the year for that to happen based on the historical tops of other cycles. Also, you can look at some technical indicators to know when to sell. If you're interested, I would look at some of these things. The Bitcoin risk metric, the MACD, and the RSI. Those are going to be three good things to look at if you're trying to figure out when to sell. Now with the with the RSI, what people are watching is this. Downwards trend line, okay? And so people will be watching when this RSI touches this yellow line. That could potentially be a great time to sell. You can see it here, you can see it here, and you can see it here, okay? So watch that line. The other thing you can do is come in here and get the Bitcoin risk metric on. We'll delete this. With the risk metric, you have to go down to the daily chart to get enough data, but you can see how in 2021, you could have sold right here when risk was at 0.9, 0.8, 0.9, and you can see how we are not even close to there today. Okay, so when risk metric gets up to 0.8, 0.9, maybe that is when you sell. I want to close this video off by saying, one, this is my plan of what I'm trying to sell at, $103 Fidelity Bitcoin or $120,000 real Bitcoin. That is what I'm targeting to sell because I will hit 100% return, turn $8,000 into $16,000, and take that money and put some more, use it for other investments. Do I think it's the top? No. Okay. And if you are holding the Bitcoin ETF for 5, 10, 20 years, today's price doesn't matter. If I'm personally just not holding this position for more than a year, and so because of that, I think now is a great time to sell. If I were holding this for 5 or 10 years, I would definitely not sell, and I would let the next cycles take Bitcoin up to $250,000, $500,000, 1 million, right? All those crazy numbers people toss out. So if that's your plan, just stick to it. But if your plan is to kind of time when to sell, this is what I'm doing. This is what I think you can look for. And this is why I'm deciding to sell now. That is my Fidelity Bitcoin experiment. This is going to be the close of the experiment. Whenever the Fidelity Bitcoin ETF hits $103 or whenever Bitcoin hits $120,000, I'm going to go ahead and sell that thing, take my profit, and this has been a great journey. As always, the way that I invest, the way that I trade is in the description, Crypto 100X Blueprint. You can adapt it for anything. I use it in Cardano. I use it for Bitcoin. It's basically just how I look at these things, how I make decisions, and how I do it in the best possible way that I can possibly do it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found some value in it. Hope this idea kind of makes sense to you, right? I want you to understand why I'm doing these things and then model it to your own life for your own perspective. But that's the video. I'm going to be selling my Bitcoin at around $120,000 Bitcoin. And I think it's a great target for my investments. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will definitely see you in the next one.